Good evening, everyone. Good evening and welcome to the Menil Collection. My name is Mary Magsamen. I'm the manager of public programs, and we're so delighted to have you all here tonight for the Artist Talk with Deborah Roberts. We hope you have had a chance to see her work that's in the permanent collections of modern and contemporary, and if you haven't, I encourage you to come back and see the work there. Before we begin, I kindly ask you to please turn off your cell phones or silence them. This is being recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel. I'd like to extend special thanks to the Cockrell Family Fund for their support of the Artist Talk series. Our next Artist Talk is on October 9th with Francesca Fuchs, so we invite you back for that as well. The Menil Bookstore is open late tonight. They'll be selling books, including this beautiful book of Deborah Roberts, and there are a few signed copies there. So you should head over there if you want to snag one afterwards. And now I'm going to turn things over to Michelle White, Senior Curator, who will tell you more about Deborah. So please welcome Michelle White. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I'm so glad to see everybody tonight and to welcome Deborah Roberts. We've already had such a fun evening. To introduce our speaker, Deborah is primarily known as a collage artist, and in her art, she probes the complex and often violent relationship between stereotypical notions of beauty, identity, and race. Her compositions are best known for their layered and angular use of found images that bring together multiple figures into a singular body, and an array of art historical and literary references. I was reading this book earlier, and I would highly recommend it. It's gorgeous. And in it, one of my favorite passages, Deborah, is by the photographer Dawood Bey, who was writing about your work. And he said, "Deborah Roberts' work has much to teach us, and all of the world would do well to pay close attention." Deborah received her MFA from Syracuse University in New York. She's based in Austin, where she was born and raised, and she's been exhibited internationally. She's in the collections of the Whitney Museum of American Art, the Brooklyn Museum, the Los Angeles County Museum of Art, among so many prestigious institutions, including the Menil Collection. And we are so excited to have Deborah's new acquisition on view down the hall, as Mary mentioned, in our modern and contemporary galleries, where it hangs alongside the Picasso painting Woman in a Red Armchair from 1923. I'd like to thank Claire Castedemont and Michael Metz for making the acquisition of Roberts' work, Consequences of Being, possible. Deborah, thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining the Menil Collection as an artist here, and we're thrilled to welcome you tonight. Please help me welcome Deborah Roberts.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that warm Texas welcome. I love it. I love it. So, earlier today, all right, dude, I got it. All right. And I got a big Texas voice, so I really don't need it. But, earlier today, I don't know, I was kind of having a little disappointing week. And, I'm a little sad after Tuesday. But Edouard took me on a tour of the drawing center. And I said, "You wouldn't happen to have a Rembrandt here?" He said, "Yes, we do." I couldn't believe it. My luck. So he took me downstairs. She showed me the Rembrandt. It was beautiful. I contemplated taking it, but I didn't think I could get past the stairs. I wasn't worried about the guards, just the stairs. It was a lot of stairs. And I was literally in heaven. I was in heaven. So after Tuesday and I didn't get taken up by the rapture, I was like, I went to heaven today, so I know what it looks like. It was great. So, I don't really do lectures per se. It's really like a conversation. And if I put on my hat because I got nervous when I saw these people. But I'm going to tell you, if I get too nervous, I'm going to turn into Chris Rock. It happens. I can't help it. I'm going to be so funny, and then I don't know where it comes from. And then maybe you'll see a show, maybe you won't. So, but I'm going to talk about a couple of things that happens in my work, and one of them is process. The process of doing it. Is it important? Does it make a difference? All those things lie in the work when I start thinking about what I want to do, and then the method of talking about the work. If people see all the things, the nuances in the work, that is very important. And the idea of collage. We talk about Hannah Hawk and Romare Bearden, but I tend to go more to Hannah Hawk because she used collage as a vehicle to gain power. She was the only woman in the Dadaism group. She talked about being a woman and being objectified and things like that. And then she went over during Picasso's time, there's then up was it 1920 to 1930 when he went to Africa and found, some textures and patterns and stuff like that. And she talked about appropriation at that time. And I really, really loved the idea of having that conversation. So the piece that's currently in the exhibition is a whole series called The Conversation with Picasso. So, but that's there, and you can go see that. But we're going to start today with The Harvest. And this work was done in 2017, and it was this idea of gaining power. And it still happens where our hair, black hair, is somehow politicized, or people want to touch it and feel it. And this idea of you have to say, hey, don't touch my hair. It's like touching a part of my body. And in this work, I wanted to put the stripes and the red, white, and then the big Muhammad Ali hand, that power, and then that hand, which I don't do this that often. I found the better way of talking about people appropriating and touching hair, but this hand that's coming from the back, and that look, that stare that we get. I was at the University of Texas football game, and I felt someone touching my hair, and I was like, I turned around, I was like, don't touch my hair, because I could touch a part. I don't know if you're going to like it or not. You might like it, but I'm not trying to make it that type of point. But, so you can see in there right there, the hand is touching the hair, and the eyes are looking directly at you. And I just thought this was really amazing picture. And I just want to share it because I think that's a conversation that we need to have. They have to have laws to tell you that black women can wear their hair naturally, and I think that's unfortunate. Taking the stand, this is actually one of the first works that I did that I made a print of this year, we sold out of print, but it was really beautiful, and I love the idea of that big hand taking hold of that little girl, that saying that you're okay. And then not only that, the hand is there, but that hand on the hip. When we all know, when we put that hand on the hip, we mean business. And I love the idea that somehow little black girls have to put that hand on the hip really early. We have to gain who we are very early. There was a Washington Post article that talked about how little black girls were sexualized very early than their peers, that they had to go through more things to prove that they, were little girls and seen as little girls, but normally they are seen as women and are little people making decisions that they're not capable of making. I love the idea of that hand, that father figure that just grab a hold of her and say, I got you, and she's just standing there. I love that piece. Between them is one of the largest works I've done on paper. I remember I went to see Mrs. Cosby's work, and I can't remember what museum, maybe it was MoCA in California, and she did amazing work on paper, and she glued it together. I said, like, I can't buy that paper that big. And I looked at the seams, and she had glued it flawlessly, and that was a challenge to me, that if you want to get bigger, you want to, I wasn't doing canvas that big, that if you wanted to get larger, you had to figure it out. That I've had a lot of success in doing the smaller works and doing the mid-sized work, but this was a challenge for me, and I did that, and I really love it. And this was in 2019. This was after I'd done the Rauschenberg Residency. And in this work, I know there's a Rauschenberg show up right now that Michelle did. This is a Rauschenberg piece right here that I was at LA County Museum, and I took pictures. That's one part of his work right there. And I wanted to add these two in my work because I just had the best time at the Rauschenberg Residency. And I just love him and all the things that he's done. And like, I always tell people, there's a four-pronged approach to my work: art history, American history, Black culture, and pop culture. So art history is just at the core of my work. It's in there. Then you see the pop culture with the, the peace sign, and then the little girls are just, I also wanted to show in here that you can be vulnerable with your arms crossed, and then also you can be a queen and have all the power. So it was all those things working within this work that I really love. And I was able to do more pencil work in this, and I don't do that much that in my work, but I'm gonna do more of it because I really love it. This is Shanika and Grace. She says Shanika, but it's Shanika and Grace. This is a 70 by 70 piece that I did in COVID. And it was so weird because, we all had to shelter in place. It wasn't anything new. And I remember sneaking to the studio and I had a show, and I had to do the work. And also, my whole life, if I ever was really stressed out, I found comfort in my practice. It was a place where I could go and really just lose myself in that work. And I was afraid. Anybody sneezed on you, you were running, like O.J. Simpson on the highway. You were trying to get away. And something odd happened is the work started to get larger. It started to take up the space of the canvas. It no longer needed to be seen in whiteness. It was taking up its own space. And I didn't know what was happening. I was like, I was maybe nervous. I was in the studio and wasn't supposed to be there. And I was just drawing bigger. And all those works that I did during that time all became very large. And then I just had to take control of it, and I did one that was smaller, but this actually happened organically. I didn't know that the work needed to take up that space, that it needed to be seen. It needed to have its own language, its own space, and it was great. And I just, I've always been that artist who allowed the work to do what it needed to do. I never tried to guide it in the way that society needs it. It's only been like 7 years that I wasn't eating Spam every day. I still like Spam, so I still eat it. But it's like, in 2016, it was really rough. And I just, God smiled on me. I didn't go to the rapture, but he smiled on me, and I was able to go to New York and do an amazing show at the Volta Art Fair, and everything just blew up. But until then, it was always a struggle out there. And everybody here who knows an artist, if there are any artists out there, we know that it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. You have to put in the time, you have to work, you have to take the no's. But in all of that, I've always felt like a successful artist because I always gave it all to the work. I never shorted, the art had the big room, I had the little room. If the art needed to grow into the kitchen, it went in the kitchen. So it grew in my house. So I'm never worried about what collectors and people tell me. The work does what the work do. And it's just, I don't know if that makes sense, but All right, there you go. That's my East Austin coming out. So Little Man was the first mural series I did. I did them all on collage on paper. They were 44 by 32, and I wanted to show, it was on the side of a building, and I wanted to show this little boy free. And I saw a video of a kid just dancing, and he was, you know, I don't think this is a broad statement when I say that you don't always see little black kids free. And the way this kid was dancing and moving within the world, and he was just free, and I wanted to capture that. So I did 5 works of him moving in different ways, and the contemporary Austin has like little holes, and like his hand went into holes and that didn't come out of, and I really, really loved that piece. And the face of this little boy is a little boy he'd gone missing. They didn't know what had happened to him. They had just did a aged work, a picture of him to see if people could recognize him. Maybe he was somewhere in the world, and come to find out, just I guess maybe 2 years ago, his mother killed him, and she took him to, when they aged him, one of the relatives recognized him, and that they knew that they hadn't heard from the mother or the kid. And when they went to talk to her, she confessed to finally killing him. So she killed him at 2 years old. And so they aged him to 12. So I just thought that it was really important to put this face in that work, to have him present, and this idea he was in a different part of freedom. And I just love that. When I choose works, I don't tell everybody where I source my materials, because I can't do that anymore. But I look for faces of the most innocent kids, and then I take that's the base of all these collages, and then I mutate these faces, because I think that's what people see. They don't see the innocence that exists in these children. They see people who are future criminals, or people who are gonna go out and rob them or do whatever. They don't understand that when you're in the 3rd grade and you didn't go to sleep at night because you wanted to stay up and watch TV, and then you got to bed late, and you get to school and you're in the 3rd grade and you're fussy because you are tired, doesn't mean that you have disciplinary problems. It just means you're a little kid who's having a bad day. And those kids, especially ones, males, black kids, are put in special needs classes, and that's not it. When you have their peers have those same days, there's a lot of sympathy and empathy toward those children, and sometimes you don't see that toward black students. This is I did a series called Notorious Act, and this is when what Karen is really about is not what has been hijacked, but when people are coming to you and you're just sitting around and they ask you, what are you doing? And I'm sitting, I'm resting. I did a series of works that dealt with that whole idea of just existing. Right now, I can say that a lot of black women are doing this whole idea of self-care, that, we're dancing, take your boots off, all that other stuff. We're doing more self-care and trying to stay away from politics as much as possible, because we can't save the world. We understand that, so we need to take care of ourselves. So this idea of resting has never really been popular among black people, but I think it's becoming more popular because we are now seeing that it's important that we take time off. And so this was a beautiful piece, and I just can't place who has it, but I think this is in the museum right now. Now, I have to tell you, this piece is for Rihanna. Now, Rihanna's having a lot of babies. She ain't paying for her work. But this is a piece called Subject America. It's number 3. I did a whole series of works where I wanted to talk about swimming. I wanted to talk about how America is sometimes seen upside down. I wanted to do multiple faces in here. I wanted to talk about hair and body and positivity, all those things in the work. And this is a piece on canvas. It's actually, I think I'm up to 6 works now with the Upside Down America. And I love these works. And I always tell people that the white space in the work is just as important as the image. Because if you are seen through the lens of whiteness, then you have to fight that all the time and gain your own power. So it exists, but it's not the main thing. So, oh yeah. So this is part of my Niece and Dorma series, George Stinney. And I don't know if you guys know the story of George Stinney or not. He was a little boy, 14 years old, who was, in 1944, was accused of killing two little white girls, taking their bodies across a long field. He didn't have shoes for a year. So he has to take these bodies and their bikes across a long field and murder them, and they not run away. And he was arrested in 3 days of saying, I saw them. He only said, I saw them, and that was it. He was arrested, he was convicted in 10 days, and he was executed in 67 days, so 80 days total, something like that. And he was so small that when they put him on the electric chair, he couldn't fit. So they stacked Bibles and books, and they put him under the hat. And he was so thin, when it shook, it fell off, and they had to do it again. And he is the case that now why kids, I guess people under 18 are not executed. This is the case. His great nephew, in I think it was 2019, got him those charges thrown away because they knew it's no way he possibly could have done that. He was a little skinny kid, maybe 105 pounds. He couldn't carry two bodies across a field. So I did a whole series of works on George Stinney that I think is the best work I've ever done. All but 2 of these works are in museums around the world. And I just think the story of George Stinney needs to be told. And it hangs in our nation's capital at the National Portrait Gallery, one of the most beautiful George Stinney works, and he deserves that. And it was so weird because I was looking for a young picture of Martin Luther King, and this picture popped up. And it was weird. And this is the actual picture. I just kind of collaged it a little bit, but I never used anybody's faces but just his. And it was weird. I hear people, mostly celebrities, say something that haunts them, and they have to do it. I don't believe that until it happened to me. And I thought about George Stinney for a week, and I said, okay, well, let's do something. Let's do one work and get it out of my system. And before you know it, I was doing a series of these works, and I just think, his clothes was too big. A little boy shouldn't be in prison with grown men. And they show pictures of him that he was just draped in these prison uniforms. And he wanted to be an artist. He was a twin. And it's just his whole life was just taken because he literally said, I saw them. That's it. That was the confession. It was horrible. So anyway, this piece is called When Pigs Fly. And I wanted to do, this is a large work on canvas, on paper. And here again, I wanted to shoot this idea that when little black boys are seen as just little black boys, pigs will fly. And I don't have anything to say about this, but I just love this piece, and I have not sold it. It's still in my studio. There's something about it that I want to keep, so I think it's just going to be a part of my permanent piece that I have in my collection of my work. And any artists in this audience, you always should collect your own work. I can't afford my own work, but I can collect it. So that's good. This was a part of that Picasso series I talked about that I did a show in Paris, and this was one that goes with that series that's in the permanent collection. And, I did the whole idea of Picasso with the diamonds and all the shapes that he used in his work. I appropriated it. 50 years later, I appropriated works from him. I love it. All right, this is called Self-Titled. This is a piece that I want to do. We struggle with this one in my studio. The face underneath it is Denzel Washington. I love Denzel Washington. I dream about Denzel Washington. Denzel Washington is really my husband. He doesn't know it. But, so I did this wonderful piece, and I was talking to Spike Lee because he just did a movie with Denzel, and I told him I would give him work if I get to meet Denzel, but he knows I'm crazy about Denzel. He doesn't want to expose Denzel to my craziness, so I have not met him yet. But I really love this work because I folded the arms. Anytime I fold arms with kids, it's saying that I've had enough with whatever that's happening in the world. And so I wanted to do this whole idea of the little Tweety, the little black boy with the little teeth, that you can see that he's not grown up yet. He doesn't have his real teeth yet. And Tweety that is a symbol of just being a young person. And then I put the Captain America emblem under his shirt, under his jacket, so you could see that he has to fight the world and in order to be whoever he is. And this work was supposed to be in the highs and lows of Spike movie, but the lawyers were saying, oh, I can see too many faces. They didn't understand collage, and you know what? I don't know, it wasn't enough money for me to fight them, you know? So sometimes it's worth it. You got to pick your battles. And this was one I had to just let go. This is a work that I did also with that Picasso show. And it says, let your root feed your crown. And it's what, I think it was a story I heard about hair again, and I've been doing a lot of puff, and actually the works that I'm doing for my next show, there's a lot of puff hair, and I even told my assistants, I said, I think we got to let the puff go for now. But I love that idea. It just reminds me when I was a little girl, and I love puffs. And until they started teasing me in school about it, and then I told my mom I needed another one, so she put a puff behind me. And then they called me a tricycle. I just didn't win, you know. So anyway, so this is a piece that I really love. This, the hands, everything. There are times when, artists fall in love with their work, and there are times when, like, this was a piece that the arms, the everything worked, the blank space, the whole idea of, I use the idea of Hannah Hawk when she used both male and female faces in her work, and it's just, this was a work that really worked. I can't remember, I think a German museum brought this piece, one of those bomb places, I don't know. All right, so, Girl, Woman, Forever, a Work in Progress. And this was talking about how my work starts. So when I'm thinking about doing collages, I use blue tape. I piece together the faces where I think I want them to go, and then I stick them, and then I do the color, and then I stick them all down. And I thought, why don't I do a big painting of the process of doing this work? And so I have Muhammad Ali's hands in there, I have Michelle Obama, I have Gloria Steinem, I have a lot of people's hands. And then I just showed how I would put this together, just little pieces. And that's when I never put the black paintings against the white ones. And so doing that whole idea, it just really worked. And I don't think that's something I can do again. When you try something and it works, and I mean, it's just a blessing. If you do it again, then, I don't know. Maybe you're greedy and want money. I don't know. I'm not greedy. I want money. This piece is called Tomorrow, 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 and Tomorrow. I was interviewed on CNN with Victor, I think his name is Blackstone, and he's on CNN in the morning, and he wanted to talk about my work and how it interjected and how I use kids. And so we did the whole filming, I was sweating, trying not to, I was nervous, looking at little box. And it was really hard. But at the end of it, he said, we're gonna show this. If there's something happened to a little black kid, we're gonna, air this episode. And I said, oh, don't worry, you're gonna air it, and it's gonna be soon. So I went to, this was, before I went to Paris, and all of a sudden, I was in Paris, early morning, watching CNN, and my story came on. And I remember texting him saying, I can't believe it. He said that a little black boy was arrested in Rochester, I think, New York, because he peed outside. He couldn't wait to get home, and he peed outside, and the police officer saw him. Instead of, reprimanding him for peeing outside, he arrested him. And then the mom came, and she said, how many of us, I'm not trying to put anybody on the spot, but as a little kid, how many people peed outside? I mean, it's not pleasant, but, we do it. And they wanted to for some reason, to make an example of a little 10-year-old. And they handcuffed him by his the wrist, so they did it by the elbows. And they put him in a squad car, and they took him to jail for peeing outside. And so these ideas of it's just too much. You just don't need to criminalize him. In ways, when you do things like that, you change who that person is. He is no longer an innocent little boy who thought it was funny to pee outside. Now he's some kind of criminal. And so they ran that story prior to me talking about my work. And it's just, it happens. I mean, I thought that was pretty awful. And I just told him, I said, it's going to happen over and over and over again. And it was weird, but I did this. This is a huge piece. One of the things after doing this, I did notice is that collages don't need to be this big. When I was in, yeah, you know why I'm doing them big, but they don't. You can tell the story with a little small collage. And, with Adwa today, when I was in heaven, he showed me a lot of beautiful work. And I can't think of the artist, but it was a little beautiful piece that told the most beautiful story. And it was it wasn't 5 by 7. And it told the story in that thing. Now, my galleries probably wouldn't like me doing little small works, but it's just, this was the biggest they're gonna get. They're not getting any bigger than this. And I think they don't need to be, Amy Sherrill and I are really good friends, and, she does these big, huge works, and I just think, sometimes, get out there, you want to do them for museums, you want to do these big works, but I'm just thinking, and this actually the show I'm doing, there are no really huge works. It's just, sometimes you have to get still, and you have to narrow things down, and you have to be calm so the language can come through the work. And I love it. It's in, it's in my storage unit. No, I guess it's in London right now. But I don't need to do big collages like this. I don't need to. This is another piece. This is when I started thinking about black paintings and how, again, we're seeing under the lens of whiteness. And I wanted to push the image back as further I could do, and then just do a really light line drawing. I don't know if you'll notice, I do a lot of gold nails. I talk about how black bodies have always been currency in America, and how that still is going on today. But I wanted to push this, I wanted very, very white tennis shoes to be in forefront of this work. And I love the title. It's a title from John Coltrane, which I love him. His birthday was the other day. And it's just beautiful music. And it says, excuse me while I kiss the sky. I'm a romantic. I told you I was in love with Denzel, This is another one, Holding Complexity. This is another one I did for my Paris show. And this is the first time I actually added a mirror, so you really can't see it. The way the photography shot, it's just like a spot, but that's actually a mirror. And when you walk up to this work, you actually see your face. You come right into her heart. And it was just perfectly, I would love to take, I'm like, I always sometimes say, I'm so smart, I'm not that smart. But I love the idea, when I placed that, I never thought that when you walk up, your face is gonna land right there. And it's perfect. It's just you now become part of the art. And then when you leave, and the next person becomes a part of it, which I thought was just, really great. And that Picasso work that I did in 2022, 23, just really helped me to understand what it means to really be an artist and to understand your place there. That conversation and reading about his work and why he did the things, it's a complex relationship with me and Picasso. Well, he's dead, but anyway, it's just, you love him and you hate him because of the things he's done. And that's what I tell people all the time. I was a practicing artist for a lot of years. I've been an artist since I was in 3rd grade, and I didn't know what was missing from my work, and I did a lot of work. A lot of good work, a lot of bad work. Some really bad work, really bad. I had to throw away. But one of the things, when I went to Syracuse, there was a component that changed my work with literature. I didn't know that the work needed literature. I thought I had everything. I had the talent. I knew how to do watercolors, oil paints, acrylics, everything. I could do printmaking, I could do everything, but there was something missing in the work, and that was literature. And it was a key component. It changed everything. I was an older person going back to get my MFA, so you go with these millennials. We all know what that's about. And so I would go into the African American studies, and I would get in the back, because I can take them on in the art classes. They knew art didn't start till they picked up a pencil. I wanted to let them know that didn't happen. But in African American studies, I took a back seat because I wanted to understand, because I hadn't did all that reading. And I remember the first class in the back, second class, middle section, third class, I was in front. It was like coming in me. It was the missing, I don't know. I don't know. It was what I needed. It's what this work needed. It needed, if you're gonna talk about Blackness, if you're gonna talk about the history of Black people in America, Black people in the world. I spent the last year doing all sorts of research, going to Amsterdam, going to Berlin, going to Cape Town, going to understand how Black bodies are seen in the world. You have to do the research, and you have to read. If you're not reading, you have a huge part of your art is missing, and you're never going to make sense. That's why I tell people, when I left Syracuse, man, I was very scholarly. I am not scholarly anymore, but I was like, man, I took that Mensa test. I'm a genius. I am. But if you asked me to take that test today, I wouldn't do well, because you just get, I was reading all the time. It was feeding my work. And that's what I tell, when I do my Saturday morning jump-ins with artists, what are you reading? Even if it's junk, read, because you don't know, it opens up so many pathways to talk about your work, to experience your work, experience the world. Not everybody sees what you see. Not everybody sees Blackness in the way that you see it. When I went to Berlin, where they burned the books, and it was very emotional, and just the idea of those scientists and theorists coming to America to talk to people. How did you keep Black people enslaved for so many years? And they told them, and they took all that information and came back to Germany and killed people based on all that. And so standing there and understanding what happened in that space, man, I started digging up them stones. I thought that I was gonna be stopped in customs, but who cares if you're bringing a bunch of rocks to America? So I got some stones. I wanted to experience that and let it fuel my work, and it has. So I always tell people, you don't have to go out and get your MFA. It's always great if you're an African American artist, but you don't have to do that. But you have to create your own resources and ways of learning about the work that you create. Because if you can't talk about this, if you can't lay the groundwork to why it's important for non-Black people to see themselves in Black bodies, then, go work at Starbucks, You have to understand it. This is a piece I did, now we put on 2024, but actually this is a piece when I was figuring out what the work was gonna look like when I was in Syracuse. It was the first canvas work done in 2014. We updated because I put a body on it, but I had the little girl in the back, and I laced it with toilet paper because this whole idea of being seen and not seen and being tossed away was at the forefront of my work. And now there's other ways of talking about that without actually using toilet paper. So we just created something different. And it's untitled because I don't know what to title it. And I love the idea of the patchwork. We're gonna have a Q&A, so I'm gonna run through these things real fast, but I just wanna tell you, I'm gonna stop here, and I know I've talked about who owns the work, but this one is really important. I am a tennis, I love tennis, I love tennis, I love tennis. I would go any place for tennis. And one of the things I really love is the Williams sisters. And I did a piece, this is a piece of Serena, her father, and Venus, but I changed the faces and everything. I kept the poses, and I called it Siblings. And it was right before, 2024, I don't know, it was before something that happened, I don't remember. But it went to Miami, and it was so weird. I didn't really tell anybody. I don't tell people where I get my poses. I told you, I can't tell people where I source my information anymore. But guess who owns this work? And they didn't even know it. I haven't called her and told her. I don't know if she'll hang up on me. But this work is owned by Serena Williams. And I can't believe it. That's how, things go full circle. And I want to tell her, but, I'm weird, and I just don't want her to think I'm a super fan, even though I am. And then I don't want to start talking, and she wants to get off the phone, and then I start sweating, and so anyway. But I just really love this piece, and also I wanted to show this part, the little monkey. It was right when one of the clothing lines put out the little monkey on the little boy in the monkey suits, and I just thought they didn't know the history of that. It's really important that you understand how tropes and stereotypes are seen throughout the world. And even though you're in Europe or Paris, you can't sell that to American Black people with a little boy, but we just don't see that. All right, that's it. Thank you. Thank you so much. So, everybody, look, thank you. I want us to have some really good dialogue. I don't know what we're going to talk about. I hope I answer all the questions. I hope I do have questions. And if you want to go back, we can go back and talk about stuff, or we can do whatever. We all go to Popeyes, whatever y'all want to do, So now.
Yeah, I've got a mic here, so if you raise your hand, yeah.
Hi, Deborah.
Hey,
Thank you so much for doing this. I'm so happy to see you. I've been telling. Hi.
I didn't even see you in there.
I'm in here.
All right.
I'm on here. I've been
love her.
telling
She's
the
great.
story recently about seeing your work for the first time in 2014 at Art Palace.
Mm-hmm.
I was a freshman in college. I had come home for the holiday break. It was December. I walked into that gallery randomly as an 18-year-old, and I saw myself on those walls. I went back to school the following semester and decided I wanted to work in art. I wanted to be a curator. And it was that experience, seeing your work, seeing myself in your work, that completely changed the course of my life. I was wondering if you could go back and talk a little bit about the Untitled piece.
The one with the toilet paper?
Yes.
Okay.
Because one of the works that was in that show is in the background of this.
Yes.
You talked a little bit about it, so it's the sort of catalyzing moment in 2014,
Right.
merging with the new way that you're working with this figure in the center. And I just wanted to linger on that for a little while longer, if you don't mind.
Okay.
I also didn't get a picture of it, so selfishly I wanted to see it. Thank you.
Yeah. This is Amari Gibson. She has, what is it, the reading room? Yeah, it's a wonderful space in Houston, guys. I love her. Valerie Cosell. We all love Amari. She is brilliant. This work, you're right, I did, during that time, like I said, I was thinking about the image of the pickaninny. I was trying to unpack the pickaninny. The pickaninny is powerful. It is powerful. Sometimes you cannot talk about it. You don't want the wrong language to come out of talking about the pickaninny. And I wanted to I don't know if you can see, but her hands are feet. I mean, her feet are hands. That this has been orchestrated to make this little girl look this bad. And they're white hands. And then at the bottom, at the top, I have a Mondrian drawing, at her chest as her shirt. And I did a huge painting of this. And Lester Marks owns it. And it is really beautiful. I realized, like I said, I was smart in 2014 and it went away. The idea of trying to unpack that in a visual form and getting it out into the world, sometimes we become, well, I shouldn't say we, I'm talking broadly again, we're embarrassed by these ideas of who people think we are and how we present ourselves. And this work in particular, it was just, I was cloaking her under the mess of toilet paper. We know what toilet paper is used for. And how the black woman has been tossed away, not protected, constantly used, and just discarded. And so I got silk screened, I got this paper, and I lightly silk screened. I wanted her to fade in and out of existence, that she is brought forward and she is pushed back. And this whole idea of push and pull, and I'm not trying to be political, but 47 talks about how black women don't have brain skills, and all this idea. There's different types of marketing the pickaninny. It doesn't have to have this image to be saying those things. So it's you won't see this work. I have a lot of it. I just don't show it because it's really hard to. You don't want people to think that, I don't know, it's hard to talk. It's hard really to kind of put out there, because one of the things I do want black girls to look like, I want them to be strong, powerful, and I don't want people to think lesser of them in any way. So, any other questions? That was a lot. Come on, there we go.
Oh, hi, thank you. Your beautiful book from Radius Books was issued with 2 different covers, and I was curious why.
It was an argument, I wanted to cover design. I'm very happy to everything that's happened to me. I'm really blessed and feel very honored. But back in 2014, when I told them I was a genius, I did this cover that did not look like my work, but it was very important because the person was in a burlap bag, and you know what the history of burlap bags are. And then I had a body coming like at the feet, and David wanted one of Deborah Roberts' traditional works, and so he said, okay, well, let's do this. Let's do 2 covers, and we'll do your cover, do my cover. Then there was this race, and then all of a sudden he sold all of his covers. I think he did that on purpose, but my cover is, I love that book cover. So the book is the same on the inside. It's just it has 2 covers, and the black cover is my favorite. Yeah. That was an argument. It was a great one. I love to argue. All right, this young man is handsome guy. Look at him.
So I noticed that Untitled with the toilet paper is the only piece that does not have the stark white or black background. And I'd be curious to hear more about your decision to use just the plain white or black background.
Well, yeah, the Untitled it's early work, even though it has 24 on it. It was done in 2014, 13, 14. I was leaving Syracuse. The stark white background is talking about the idea of the gaze of whiteness. How we try to merge ourselves under the lens of someone else. And the black paintings, I did this because, I don't want to be morbid, but when you used to die and something, they would just make that chalk outline of you. Back in 2020, a lot of little girls was gone missing, and a little black girls, and no one was talking about them. They were there, but they wasn't there. They were present and they were absent at the same time. So the only thing that was left was their face or an outline of them, and I cloaked it in blackness. It was during 2020, during the whole idea of COVID and what that meant, and we were just bombarded with this one guy all the time during the media, and no one talked about how many girls have gone missing. So also during that time, I did a installation where I put all the names of the little girls, women, all the names have gone missing. And it was so important to do that, so I just got a little chalk outline and created their bodies. So, and I was reading Toni Morrison's Song of Solomon, and when she talked about Milkman, I don't know if you know that book, and he said that black people could fly, and at the end, he does fly, but it's really a leap. And the idea of hearing her voice in that book, and the idea of those stories, that story just created, it was really, it was hard doing those black paintings. It's not as hard anymore. I can't remember, it was a curator in Los Angeles, and he told me that's the best work. I needed to go unpack that work because I had done only 4 little small ones. And he said, go unpack it, take it away, take the power away from it. And then I had the nerve to listen to the 1619 Project. That was horrible. I was driving fast and was a weird driver. And so art does kind of affect you and how you create. And so the black paintings don't carry that weight anymore to me, so we do them. But for the works that I did with the research for Berlin and all that stuff, no black paintings. I need clear images. You understand what I'm talking about. This work is more, I guess it's more in your face. There are a lot of things cloaked in my work. This is not cloaking stuff. This is kind of, it's cloaked, but you have to look, you're gonna see it. And you're gonna have to unpack it if you choose to do that. I think that colors and work tend to mesmerize people. It lures you in and you can't see all the poison in the work. There's also medicine there too. So you have to look. So doing that work and doing all the white backgrounds are back are important, like this piece, opposed to doing the other stuff. So yeah, that's it. Yeah. All right. One more. And then we'll get that lady in the back on the side there.
Hi, Deborah. I'm actually from the San Francisco Bay, and I just saw on TikTok that you were going to be here, and I had to break my neck to get over here because I'm like a huge fan of your work and your artistry, and I would love to hear a little bit more about your newest collection. You kind of mentioned it briefly, and I was like, oh, what's she doing next?
I know. Well, I almost didn't want to talk about it because we didn't put any photos in. It's traveling. The work is going to travel to the Flag Foundation, Everson, and a German museum with a Bonn on the end of B-O-N-N, I don't know, wherever. I know it, but I don't want to butcher it. I can't say the title. And so I kind of did not want to put in it, but one of the things that I wanted to talk about in that work, and I don't have a photo on it on my phone, but when you talk about, food and food deserts and black people existing in food deserts, And how, remember oxtails? Nobody was eating oxtail but black folk. Now it is a delicacy. You can go in a restaurant, oxtails are like $65 for a couple of oxtails. And now you go in the store, it's about $65 for a couple of oxtails. So I wanted to talk about that in my work, how these things, how these notions of blackness and beef tips and all these things, how that exist. I normally don't. I have white backgrounds. You're not going to see that many white backgrounds. We are still doing the patterns. We're painting all the patterns, but inside the patterns may be something that we're experiencing with lynching right now. So there's a beautifully painted red flowers, green, leafy, and just this little leaf is a little black woman who's been hung. And it's all over the work, all over the pattern. So normally you don't see that in my work, but it's a conversation we have to start having. And especially Amsterdam. Amsterdam has gotten off really easy with their idea of the slave trade and what they did, their port. And no one talks about Amsterdam, so I'm talking about a little bit about that in the work. So it's more having a more global idea of how blackness is seen. And when you think about the Holocaust and you think about 6 million Jews were murdered, well, 4 million other people were murdered too. You know, there were black people, there were Roma people, there were gay people, there were a lot of other people who perished, and we don't talk about enough. So all of those things are going to be added to the work. I think the work, while it always has joy, it has more pain. But there's hope, you know, it's always going to be hope. Anytime you do children, there's hope. They are always hope. So, yeah. This person had a question over here. Yeah, Tony, he's running. Go on, run, Forrest.
Hello. Hi, Deborah. My name is Imani. Also, hi, Amari. I am a librarian, and something that I always really appreciate about artists is the importance of research and the importance of understanding full context. But something I always talk to students about in my day-to-day instruction is that uncertainty and the stress that you feel when you're researching things. And it seems like you're researching things that are deeply devastating, deeply overwhelming. And I'm curious, I guess I have a lot of thoughts about this, but I'm curious how you contend with those moments when you're researching and you're just like, okay, well, there's a child who was killed. Okay, well, there is, how do you contend with that to keep going?
It's really hard. I don't do drugs or anything like that, but but it's really hard sometimes. But it's very rewarding because we know we have to talk about these things. I grind a lot, but I think it's important that these conversations are held. If I thought that I did adult people, I think people would turn away from the work. I don't think that the work has been well received as much as it had they've been adults. But they're kids and they're innocent, and people understand that whether they know it or not, they do see little kids. And the idea of seeing a human in a child is easy because, we all love babies. We all love when they're 6 and they ask them questions and why, and I don't know, and all these things. And then as they grow older, what happens between 8 and 12? What happens between 12 and 22? And we know for a fact that young black girls have to put on their guard at now it's earlier. It used to be 15, now it's 12. And our bodies change earlier than anyone else. Those are things we have to talk about, and we got to understand why this is happening. And while it might be unpleasant, you also want to do, like I said, you can be mesmerized with the colors and the shapes of things to get people to understand what you're talking about. But I've learned that sometimes if you try to talk to people with a closed hand, you're never going to get them to come over and talk to you. But if your hand is open and you're open to dialogue and you're not shouting, you're trying to tell them, this is hurting me. Now, while all our houses may be on fire, mine is actually on fire, and I need you to come and help me just, put out that fire. So those are the type of things I try to do in the work. And I hope that this new body of work really, explores that. And, we'll see what happens, People can like it or don't like it. I don't know. It's really stressful. You know, anytime you're creating a new body of work, you don't know if people are gonna like it. Man, I have plenty of nights saying this is junk. I tell you. I don't care. I mean, I have friends say, don't say that. But I also get theorists to come and do studio visits with me. I get PhD people to come in and talk about the work. Do you understand what I'm doing? Do you understand what I'm trying to say in this work in order to get it across? And I'm doing little sculptures. I don't want them to be like an 8th grade project. I want them to really look like, and this is not Simone Lee, but yeah, you know, it could be okay. Yeah. All right, guys, I think that's it, right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a reminder, our bookstore is still open if you'd like to go over and purchase a book.